What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Oak Tree Football channel. And in today's video, I'm going to give you guys my top 25 after Week 10 of the 2020 college football season. Week 10 just wrapped up, and it was a pretty interesting week. There were a few big upsets. There were a few close games. It was a pretty entertaining week overall. The majority of the games, of course, happened on Halloween. And there were a lot of very interesting games. So today I'm going to be giving you guys my top 25 after Week 10. There were a few changes, a few new teams in there. So without further ado, I'm going to get into it, starting with 25 to 21. And at number 25, I have Tulsa. Now, Tulsa has not been on my top 25 up to this point. But they won their game against East Carolina. It was a close game, but on Friday night, they were able to get the 34-30 win. And I've been close to putting Tulsa on my top 25 for a while now, because when you look at what they've done, first they barely lost to a number 11 ranked Oklahoma State. Then they beat a number 11 ranked UCF, and then they had a big win against USF, and then of course they had that win against East Carolina. So other than it, maybe they've looked pretty good overall. They did only put up 7 points against Oklahoma State, but still, that's expected. I mean, Oklahoma State's a really good team. And the fact that Tulsa only allowed 16 points is pretty impressive. Oklahoma State looked like they were going to lose that game for a long point until the fourth quarter. I just think Tulsa's been a solid team this year. They put up 34 points against East Carolina. So I think it was a very good week, good game from Tulsa. And I think they've been good this season so far. So I have them at 25. At number 24, I have Auburn. Auburn, of course, is coming off that huge win against LSU. Now, I actually did expect Auburn to win this game, but I didn't expect them to win it in the form or in the way they did. They just dominated, and it wasn't even close. I believe they put up 48 points. I think it was 48-11. Auburn has won their last two. They did have that loss against South Carolina, which isn't great. But other than that, they've lost to a top 5 team in Georgia. They beat a ranked team in Kentucky. Their game against Arkansas was close, but Arkansas is extremely underrated this year. They are so much better than they were the past few years. And then they had this huge one against LSU. Now, LSU isn't great, but I don't think they're terrible. I don't think they're as bad as, some teams are in this conference. So that's a pretty big win for them. And in my opinion, it's enough to get them into the top 25. At number 23, I have Texas. Texas also beat Texas beat a ranked team this weekend in overtime. They beat Oklahoma State. This was a very good game. I watched it all the way through. Because it was just a great game overall. I expected Oklahoma State to win this game, but Texas did a good job. 41-34 was the final score. It was definitely a very good game, but I kind of feel like Oklahoma State could have won this game, and Texas kind of got lucky. I don't know if that's exactly right, but still, I feel like Oklahoma State definitely could have won this game. Ellinger was okay, He threw under 200 pass yards, but he did throw 3 touchdowns. They ran the ball decently, I think. Their defense was okay. I believe they forced 3 turnovers or 4 turnovers. I'm not completely sure, but the defense looked good. Texas looked good overall. Big win for them. They advanced to 4-2, and their Big 12 championship hopes are a little bit higher than they were. At number 22, I have USC. USC is yet to play, but they have still, or I believe they can still be a good team. Playing this week, of course, the Pac-12 is kicking off this week, which I'm very excited for. And I think they're going to be a good team. This team, definitely their offense looks good. And I think they can be solid this year. Not really much to say because they haven't played yet, but Keaton Slovis is a good quarterback. I think they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a good wide receiver. I just think they have a pretty good offense, and their defense is good enough too. At number 21, I have Boise State. Boise State is now 2-0 on the year after beating Air Force. This weekend, they in their first game, they beat Utah State 42-13, and this week they beat Air Force 49-30. But on Friday this week, they're taking on BYU, a very, very good team. That is going to be such a good game to watch. I'm very excited for it. It's going to be a good one, and that's going to really decide if Boise State is going to be a good team this year, or if they're going to be, a solid team that's down at the bottom of the rankings and maybe not even in the rankings each week. But even without Hank Bachmeier, the starting quarterback, Boise State looked really good this weekend. And I think they deserve to be a top 25 team. I have them at number 21. At number 20, I have Liberty. Liberty, I believe, did not play this week, but they're undefeated still. They did not play this week, but they're undefeated still. And this weekend they're coming up with a game against Virginia Tech, which is going to be an interesting one. I think it could be a close game, and if Liberty wins that one, maybe they can jump up into the top 15. But I really like the way Liberty's looking right now. I think they're a solid team overall. I have them at number 20 in the nation. At number 19, I have Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma was expected to be really good this year, of course, like they always are. They won their first game big, and then they lost 2 in a row, and that knocked them out of the rankings. But in the past 3 games, they've been a lot better. Maybe against Texas, they weren't great, but in the game against TCU, they looked much better. And in the game against Texas Tech, they looked really good. They put up 62 points. And the only reason they allowed 28 was because later in the game they started benching their starters. This looked like a much more complete team. It looked like a much better team. And I think this team, maybe has a chance to win the Big 12. With Oklahoma State losing this week, there's no undefeated teams. And Oklahoma State is one of the only teams that has one loss. So Oklahoma, sitting at 2 losses right now, is still very much in the picture for that Big 12 championship game. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But at number 18, I have another Big 12 team. I have Iowa State, who I believe did win. Yes, they did win this weekend against Kansas. 30-point win. That's expected. Kansas is not a very good football team. Iowa State is a pretty good football team. Breece Hall continues to impress. He had nearly 200 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Purdy struggled a bit, which is surprising. He struggled a bit more than expected this season. But luckily for him, Breece Hall is having an incredible year. He's carrying this team. Maybe not carrying, but he's doing a very good job right now. Iowa State's looking pretty good in my opinion. I have them at 18 in the nation. And one spot above them, I have SMU. I was really deciding whether SMU should be above Iowa State or not. I decided to put them there. I like SMU this year. I'm higher on them than most people. They bounced back after their loss to Cincinnati with a pretty big win against Navy. It was only a 14-point win, but they put up 51 points. The only concern I really have about them is their defense. I think their offense is very good. I think Shane Buechele is a great quarterback. He had a good game. I think they have a really good running game as well. They have a few guys that I think are solid there. And they have some good wide receivers too. Their defense, though, has allowed some more points than I think it should. But still, it's a very good team overall in my opinion. Definitely a contender in the American Athletic this season, even after that loss to Cincinnati. At number 16, I have Indiana. Some people may think this is a bit too low for Indiana, but we have to remember they did only beat Rutgers. They had that big win against Penn State, which was huge for them, and then they beat Rutgers by 2 scores this week. I think Indiana's a good team. They're playing Michigan this week, which obviously Michigan lost. Big loss for them. So I think Indiana could win again this week, and if they win that game, they're sure to continue moving up in the rankings. Indiana's a very good team right now, in my opinion. 16 may seem a bit low, but this team definitely has a lot of talent. I think they looked a lot better against Rutgers, obviously the win against Penn State was more impressive, but I think they looked more like a good team. Against Rutgers, I think Michael Penix Jr. played better. I think their team just played better overall. Walt Phillier had a good game. Peyton Hendershot, the tight end, had a good game. So I think it was a good game for Indiana. Moving on to 15 to 11. At number 15, I have Oregon. Oregon is my number 1 team that is yet to play this season, but of course they are kicking off their season very soon. And I think Oregon's going to continue to move up. Oregon has had a lot of opt-outs, which is going to hurt them, but I still think this is the best team in the Pac-12. They're still probably the favorite to win it. They definitely have a lot of talent. Tyler Show, I believe, is going to be the starting quarterback. I think he can be good overall. And I just think this is a good team. C.J. Verdell, their running back, I think is one of the best running backs in the Pac-12, maybe even the nation. I think this Oregon team has a lot of good offensive players, and their defense is really good as well. I do believe Penn Solo opted out, which is going to hurt them, but still, this is a very good team. I think they're top 15 in the nation. At number 14, I have Marshall. Marshall, for me, has been one of the better group of 5 schools so far this season. I have them moving up to 14, which some people may not agree with, but I think they're good. Their game did get postponed this week against Florida International. Maybe I could have put them one spot down, but I just figured Marshall's been really good in my opinion this year. I think they deserve to be at 14. Not much to say about them because they had their bye, but they're coming up with a game against UMass this weekend, which they should win. And then they have Middle Tennessee and Charlotte to end the season, I believe. So if they can win those games, they're going to go undefeated this season. So that would be very good for them, and potentially they can be a top 10 team. At 13, I have another group of 5 school, Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina, this is one of their best seasons in a while, to be honest. They looked really, really good this weekend against Georgia State. Now, Georgia State is a solid team. They're not necessarily great, but they're not bad either, and Coastal Carolina just destroyed them. 51-0 was the final score. Wasn't close for a second. And they've just been good. They beat ranked Louisiana last week. They beat a solid Georgia Southern team. They're undefeated right now, and they are looking really, really good. For the New Year's Six Bowls, they could be one of those Group of 5 representatives. Even though there are some really good Group of 5 schools right now, Coastal Carolina is looking great. They still have a few tough games on the schedule, like I believe Appalachian State and Liberty are both on the schedule for later in the season, but still, this is looking like a good team right now. At number 12, I have Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State did lose this weekend, but I still think they're a very solid team. It was a close game. I think they could have won. They have beaten Iowa State, a ranked team this season, and they've looked good pretty much all year. In week 1, they struggled a bit, but after that, I just think they looked really good. Of course, up until that Texas game. But I see them bouncing back this week against Kansas State, a Kansas State team who lost against West Virginia this weekend. I think Oklahoma State's a good team still. I have them at 12th in the nation, even with that loss. At number 11, I have Miami. Now, Miami did not play this week, but they've looked good this season, no doubt about that. Their last time out, they defeated Virginia. Wasn't the best game by them, but still, it was good enough to get the win. I have them at 11 in the nation. Moving into the top 10, at number 10, I have Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin didn't play, and they will not be playing this week either because of positive COVID-19 cases, which both those games were canceled. And Wisconsin could finish undefeated, but if some other team finishes undefeated with an 8-0 record and Wisconsin finishes 6-0, which is how many games they're going to be playing as of right now, Wisconsin might not make the conference championship, even if they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten, which it's unfortunate for them because these games have been canceled. Against Purdue and Nebraska, they've been canceled, not rescheduled, which that's not good for them. And, you know, they're going to hope some other teams lose, and they're going to hope they can win because they looked really good against Illinois. But if they can't play games, they're not going to be able to be a top 10 team and a Big 10 championship team. But I still think it's a good team overall. I have them at 10 in the nation. At number 9, I have BYU. BYU had another solid win this week against Western Kentucky. Final score was 41-10. Zach Wilson's looking great. BYU is looking great. They have one of their first real tests of the season. They've had a few tests, but I think this is their biggest of the season against Boise State this weekend. It's going to be, on Friday night. But I think this is going to be a really good game, no doubt. And, you know, this is going to see if BYU really could be a playoff contender, if this team really has what it takes to be in the playoff. Because right now there's a lot of talk about them being a playoff team, but if they can't beat Boise State, that's probably not happening, and they probably need to get a big win if they want to get in the top 4 also. But I think they're a good team. Zach Wilson's looking really good. This team's looking really good overall. At number 8, I have Florida. Florida had a very big win this week, and I have them moving up too. After a few weeks of absence, their game was pretty close early, but then Florida just started to pull away. Final score was 41-17. This offense is looking really good. They have a big game this week against Georgia. Kyle Trask, I believe, had 4 touchdown passes. Florida's looking good right now. I have them at 8 in the nation. At number 7, I have Texas A&M. Texas A&M took on Arkansas, and they did allow, I believe, 31 points against them, but which some people are saying that they allowed 31 points against Arkansas. But Arkansas is not the team they were last year. Arkansas is a very good football team this year. And even though they have only won 2, they've kept basically every game close except for the Georgia game. But that game was close early. They were close against Auburn. They were pretty close against Texas A&M. They beat Ole Miss, and they beat Mississippi State. So I don't think this was too bad of a win for Texas A&M. 42 points is what they put up. Very good. They moved the ball well. Kellen Mond's looking good right now. I think Texas A&M is looking good. I have them at 7. One spot above them at number 6. I have Cincinnati. Cincinnati have been moving up one spot after their huge win against Memphis. They just destroyed them. And Memphis, one of the best non-top 25 teams in the nation, it wasn't even close. 49-10. And I think this shows that Cincinnati deserves a shot at the playoff. And if some teams lose this week, we have the number 1 team versus the number 4 team playing each other, the number 8 team versus the number 5 team playing each other. If the 4 team and the 5 team lose, Cincinnati, if they win, could sneak up into the top 4, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Cincinnati's a good team this year, no doubt. Desmond Ritter's looking great. This team's just looking great overall. I'm at 6 in the nation. Moving into the top 5, at number 5, I have Georgia. Georgia this week is taking on Florida. They did win against Kentucky, but it was pretty ugly, to be honest. They only put up 14 points. Their defense looked good, only allowed 3 points, but Zamir White was really the main point of that offense. Had 100-plus rush yards, but Stetson Bennett didn't look great. I think they need to give some more reps to some other guys, JT Daniels especially, because Bennett is throwing a lot of interceptions right now. And I think a big part of that has to do with how short he is, which really affects him. But I think Georgia's solid. This game against Florida is going to be very, very important. At number 4, I have Notre Dame. Now, I haven't been the biggest fan of Notre Dame so far this year, but I think they look good. They looked okay, in my opinion, against Georgia Tech. Good enough to be 4 in the nation. They have a big game against Clemson this week. That's one of the biggest games, maybe even of the year, with the way things are looking right now. And I think they have a good chance to win it. But this team is solid. Their running game looks good. Their defense looks pretty good as well. Ian Book is okay. Not as good as I thought he would be. But that's mostly because he's running the ball a lot more. So not as good as a passer I thought he would be, but he's solid as a runner. But with that out of the way, moving into the top 3, at number 3, I have Ohio State. Ohio State beat Penn State this week, a very big win as well. It was only by 13 points, but Ohio State was clearly the better team if you watched the game. Ohio State deserved to win. Shaun Wade made a few mistakes at cornerback, which caused Jahan Dotson to have a really, really big game. He's a great receiver right now, but Ohio State looked great. I mean, Justin Fields looked great again. He threw 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Master Teague had a good game. Immediately, Garrett Wilson had a huge run, which really set the tone for Ohio State in this game. Jumped up to a 14-0 start early, and it wasn't too close from there. I mean, Penn State made it a 13-point game at the end, but Ohio State deserved to win. And this is a top 3 team, in my opinion. Probably one of the favorites to win the national championship right now. They look really good. I think they have a really good shot at it. At number 2, I have Clemson, moving down one spot from number 1. And that's because they had a close win against Boston College this week. Obviously, they were without Trevor Lawrence, but still, they look pretty solid. Their freshman quarterback, I believe I'm going to say this wrong, I'm going to try it anyway, DJ Uiagalelei, I believe, had a really good game, actually. 342 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown as well. The freshman impressed. Travis Etienne had a solid game. Specifically, he had a big game in the receiving game. And this team, they were down big at halftime, but their defense played lights out in the second half, and I think that's really what won them this game. Offense played pretty good as well, but that game against Notre Dame is really going to decide a lot of things, I think. So, moving on to number 1, I have Alabama. Alabama had a big win this weekend. They're one of the best teams in the nation, and I think that win really settled it for me. 41-0 against Mississippi State. I have my number 1 in the nation. They have a bye week this week, so they're not playing, but this team's really good in my opinion. Definitely one of the best teams. I have them at number 1. Devonta Smith had a big game, even with Jalen Waddle out. Mac Jones continues to be a solid quarterback, or a pretty good quarterback, actually. Najee Harris is a great running back. This defense is great. Alabama, in my opinion, is the best team in the nation. So that is my top 25 after Week 10, or heading into Week 10 of the college football season. What is your guys' top 25, or who do you have in the top 25? Tell me in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you are new around here, feel free to subscribe for more NFL and college football content. If you watched my last video, you know that I'm trying to bring out some more content than I have been. So I hope you guys are ready for that. But thank you guys again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.